On July 19th, 2024, there was a global IT outage. Thousands of flights were canceled, trains were canceled, McDonald's had to shut down in Japan, national healthcare systems weren't working, payment systems were down, banks couldn't operate properly, all heck broke loose. Some airlines were even issuing handwritten boarding passes. That's how bad it got. Now, because we're constantly warned of cyber attacks, many people were worried that this was, in fact, cyber Armageddon. So they started asking me things like, "Oh my God, Scotty, should I unplug my computer from the internet? Is it time to ditch Windows and switch to Linux? Will the roof of my house collapse?" So, the question is, what do you really need to know about this global IT outage? Alright, first of all, you do not need to worry about your private devices, even those running Windows. They'll be perfectly fine. It turns out that the culprit for all this mayhem was an update issued to software called Falcon. Now, Falcon is basically antivirus, anti-malware, cyber attack prevention software, security software, sold by a company called CrowdStrike, which actually kind of sounds like a brand of tear gas, interestingly enough. CrowdStrike, funny name for a cybersecurity company? Now, specifically, the update contained a null pointer. I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a second, because it's quite interesting. But first, you have to understand that CrowdStrike is a multi-billion-dollar American company that provides corporate-level cybersecurity to tons of banks and airlines, local U.S. agencies, and even many national governments around the world. Now, this bug only affected Windows 10 machines, but the problem was that it affected cybersecurity software. It's just like on your computer. If you're running something like Malwarebytes, anti-malware, it's to protect your system, right? Same thing in corporate networks. Each computer has anti-malware software, Falcon in this case. Now, this software runs at a very low level, very close to the core of the operating system, which means if there's a problem with an update to it, it borks the whole computer. It blue screens, and that's what happened. All these Windows 10 machines and all these different corporations blue screened. So, okay, what do you do if your computer blue screens? Well, you just press the reset button, right? And then you wait and hopefully Windows restarts and you're off and running. But what happens if you hit that reset button and it blue screens again? Well, you call tech support. So even though CrowdStrike very quickly released a fix for this bug, many corporations' computers can't get the fix because their computers have blue screened and they're stuck in this reboot loop of blue screens. So what do you do then? Well, CrowdStrike itself released this lovely web page which shows you one method of repairing all these thousands of systems. And it's, pretty simple. You just have to boot each computer individually into safe mode and then navigate and find these certain files and delete them and do a few other things. And then you just reboot the computer again. And then it works, right? It gets the new update that doesn't have the null pointer bug and Bob's your uncle. The problem is that you may have to do this individually for every single computer on your corporate network. So as you can imagine, this weekend, most likely the IT departments of many corporations will be working overtime for the entire weekend, nonstop, without sleep, trying to unbork all the computers individually, one at a time. Oops. So what does this mean for you personally? Well, aside from a whole lot of inconvenience potentially, not very much. And as I mentioned earlier, your personal devices, they're fine. Your smartphone, your tablet, your laptop, even if it's running Windows, no problems. Falcon is for corporate customers only, so you've probably got something like Malwarebytes or Avast antivirus, whatever. You're fine. But what about the cyber attack front? Is this the beginning of cyber Armageddon? Well, on that front, things are maybe not so good. Aside from sounding like a brand of tear gas, does the name CrowdStrike sound familiar to you? Because it should. CrowdStrike was hired by the Democratic National Committee to investigate a data breach of its servers that occurred in 2016. The company actually helped government officials conclude that the data breach was caused by Russia. This was in 2016. But in 2020, Over 50 interviews were declassified, and they contained some interesting new information. These documents included CrowdStrike executive and former FBI Assistant Director Sean Henry saying that his company had, quote, no evidence that any files were actually exfiltrated from the DNC's servers, and that all they had was, quote, circumstantial evidence. So CrowdStrike isn't just any old cybersecurity company. They're a multi-billion-dollar cybersecurity company that has been involved in political shenanigans in the past. Their software runs on the computer systems of many national governments around the world, and they have a former FBI guy on their board helping to direct the show. Need I say more? I mean, we're not even talking about big data here, we're talking about big government/intel agency data. Well, I suppose that's one way to spy on everybody. To top it off, Dubai Airport came out and said, yeah, our Western system went down, but we just switched over to our backup system. Oh, a backup system. What a great idea. It also begs the question, where the heck were the backup systems of all these airlines and banks and government agencies? Where were their backups? They don't have any. So technically, no, this wasn't really Cyber Armageddon. But we do have a little problem with CrowdStrike. You see, there are two possibilities that I can see here. The first possibility is that this null pointer issue, which normally would have been caught by human code review or automated testing, should never, ever, ever have made it into production code that gets pushed out to thousands and thousands of computers around the world. This is just like basic corporate coding. You review the code, you test it, you test the crap out of it before you even think of pushing it out. So the first possibility is that what we're talking about here is like horrible incompetence, gross negligence, even if they come out and say, well, it was our silly intern. Well, why wasn't the intern being managed? So first possibility, serious incompetence. So the second possibility is that someone inserted this null pointer and pushed it out to everyone, bypassing their code review, which means there's either someone inside the company or someone outside the company who compromised their systems in order to push out this malicious update. In other words, they were hacked. Now, if they were hacked either by someone inside or outside, that looks pretty bad for a cybersecurity company who's supposed to be protecting you against hackers. And of course, they would never admit that they were hacked if they were hacked because their business would go bankrupt instantly. But the only other option anyone can see right now is that they're seriously incompetent, which means they're going to go bankrupt. So either way you look at it, CrowdStrike is probably in a whole heap of trouble. So it will be very interesting to see in the coming days and weeks what further information comes out, because I don't think we've heard the end of this particular story yet. But in the meantime, you can rest assured that your computer and your devices will be just fine. For more techie tips, see ScottiesTech.Info. Thanks for watching. See you next time.